Welcome back to Dynamo DeFi. Today we have with us the guest, Caitlin Cook, Director of Growth at Moonwalk Fitness. Welcome to the show, Caitlin.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I just did a brief intro, but I'll leave the main intro to you. Why don't you tell people a little about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So again, Director of Growth at Moonwalk Fitness. Moonwalk, and we'll get into this a little bit more, is a fitness accountability app built on Solana that combines daily step goals with financial incentives to help people form healthy habits that last. So gamifying accountability, just getting people to move more daily and live a little bit healthier. Prior to this, I worked in the Solana ecosystem for the past few years, running marketing and comms for a derivatives infrastructure project. So a little bit different, having more fun on the consumer side now. Prior to that, started out my career in finance, ended up building and running a crypto education platform. So very 101 level content for institutions, financial advisors, more of the like TradFi group, and then just slowly went down the Solana rabbit hole from there.
Awesome. Yeah. And this video is actually part of a series we're doing about both DeFi 101, Crypto 101, and also focus on the Solana ecosystem. So it's a good fit. So diving into your background a little more, can you talk a little bit about how you ended up in crypto in the first place? Because people have, or Web3, if you want to call it crypto Web3, how you ended up here in the first place, and what suggestions you'd have to someone who is looking to take that career path.
Yeah, so I fell into crypto entirely by accident. So like I mentioned, I started my career in finance. I moved to Chicago after college to work at Deutsche Bank. I was selling ETFs to financial advisors all day. So just classic out of school phone job at a bank. Had been on Twitter really actively starting from the beginning of college, which actually plays into every job I've ever had since that first job. I didn't like working in corporate. I felt like I wasn't able to, kind of accelerate my career path and move up the ladder in the way that I would have liked to, kind of like a self-starter type, which I think is more amenable to startups than working in corporate. So learned a lot in the first job, was there for probably a year and a half. But a lot of that was through COVID as well. So had started looking around for different types of jobs while I was in that role. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. Thought I wanted to work in finance still, just something maybe a little bit different. But I started talking to some of the connections I made from Twitter and met a guy, or had a mutual connections with a guy who was doing some startup. Didn't know a ton about what it was or what it was doing, but he just seemed like really cool, charismatic. People seemed to be drawn to him and like him. So seemed like someone that would be nice to work with. And messaged him on Twitter and just said, hey, if you're, would love to learn more about what you're doing. If you're ever hiring, let me know. And he literally answered in 30 seconds and said, you're hired, and FaceTimed me that afternoon with ideas on what I could do and how we could work together. The startup was crypto for TradFi, essentially. It was like a product to make it easier for advisors to buy and sell crypto for their clients. And I knew nothing about crypto at the time. I made that really clear. But the guy who was hiring me said that it was okay, I would learn on the job, and that it was nice to have people on the team who weren't, like maximalists, because our whole product was catering to older people who didn't necessarily know or feel really strongly about crypto, and having sympathy for the learning experience and kind of the confusion and questions along the way would be really helpful. So ended up starting that job, not knowing much, basically like drinking from a fire hose really early. And then as we started building out the product, we learned that a lot of these traditional finance types thought they wanted crypto, but then you talk to them and they'd say, what's a blockchain? So it quickly pivoted my role into building an education platform from the ground up, and just to educate these money managers on what we're trying to do and kind of the different investment opportunities and what could be done there. That was in like probably 2021. So as you can imagine, there was a lot of resistance. Really good learning experience, again, to go through, and probably the best way to learn about the space too, and be forced to do it quickly and explain things well. But I had made friends in Chicago randomly who are working on a startup building on Solana. They brought me to a co-working space where I ended up meeting the founders that I work for next, and the DeFi protocol that I worked on before Moonwalk. And I just wanted to go fully down the rabbit hole rather than being stuck on 101 level content, and working for a project fully building on chain was the best way to do that. So made the switch there. And then long story less long on coming to Moonwalk, it was one of the first crypto products that I used every single day. I was advocating for it on my platforms. I was onboarding users to it. It was something I'm super passionate about as someone who's really active. And the team needed someone to basically do everything publicly facing for the product. So everything from marketing and comms and PR to content, BD, the many hats type of thing at startups. So I guess the advice would be find something that you're passionate about. Try to work with good people who want to help you succeed and want to help you learn. I think that part's super understated in this space. Like, work with people that you trust and like being around. And then I think just kind of let your passions direct the way after that. If you're in a position where you're able to take risks, I was young in my career, obviously still am, with no real obligations or family, or, I was able to take those risks. So when you're in that spot, highly recommend taking advantage of that to the fullest, and then just going where your interests lead you, because then it doesn't feel like work. It feels more like a vocation. And every day you wake up excited to be doing what you're doing, and it makes the bad days way more tolerable.
Love it, Kat. And people definitely shouldn't underestimate the power of just reaching out. I think of pretty much all the big breaks, aside from things going viral, pretty much all the big breaks I've had in this industry have been from just unsolicited DMs. One was reached out to someone who had a much larger newsletter when I was just getting my account started, and said, hey, I'll write for your newsletter for free. And he actually took me up on it. And then that led to a lot of other things later on. So I also, in addition to this channel, I'm the head of growth at DeFi Llama. I had just been DMing the founder for years, one of the founders for years, with like suggestions for the platform and being like, hey, I put out this video where I mentioned you, until eventually he said, hey, we're actually looking to make our first marketing hire if you'd want to come on. And then there's lots of others like that. So people really should not underestimate the power of the DM. And I have tons of people I've DM'd that never responded, right? That's how it goes.
Throw the shot out there. Like, I think most people are afraid to even try, but if you're like, not being pushy or rude in what your ask is, and you're coming off as someone who's like, trying to learn and, trying to, I don't know, just being like a decent human being and upfront about what you're looking for, people are pretty receptive to it. I also think most people won't attempt because they're afraid of being shot down. But in most cases, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Someone says no. But in the best case, it's like unlimited upside. So you're better off just shooting shots thoughtfully than being afraid.
100%. And and it's also, especially if you reach out and actually offer value. I mean, I can think of some, for example, where I reached out to people who were way above my pay grade, like founders of top 10 protocols. And sometimes they didn't even talk to me directly, but they said, oh, like, let me connect you to someone on my team. And then that led to something else. But I know the main reason we're here today is to talk about Moonwalk. So why don't you share with people what exactly Moonwalk is?
Yeah, so Moonwalk is gamifying daily movement. It's one of the easiest ways that we can enhance our lives is by moving our bodies more. So often now, because of technology and just all of the different advances that we've had, a lot of the natural ways in which we'd move our body maybe a couple decades ago aren't necessarily things that we need to do now. We're driving in cars everywhere. We're not necessarily living in walkable cities because we have cars. We're sitting in desk jobs. And what we see like every single year with New Year's resolutions, this is as an example, people have good intentions to live healthier, but they kind of go down the wrong paths to attempt it, where they're picking really difficult diets that are hard to maintain. They're trying to go for these aggressive workout regimens. They're joining expensive workout classes. And what we see like 90% of the time, especially when it comes to like health and wellness, fitness related goals, is you can't keep up with them because you set the bar too high, or it's not something you actually can integrate into your life. So Moonwalk's taking pretty much the opposite approach to that, where how do we actually find ways to hold people accountable in a way that's sustainable? What are changes that we can make that naturally fit into the lives we already live? And increasing your daily step count is one of the easiest, most broad basket ways that you can increase your physical and mental health all at once, and do it in an incremental way that's sustainable. So whether you're just getting off of your daily commute, like a stop early and walking the difference, or taking walking breaks at the office, changing sitting meetings to walking meetings, going for walks after every meal, or maybe you're a runner, you like to dance, like the real idea is just moving more daily. But getting to the accountability part that's so often missed, if we go by our own willpower alone, that's generally not enough in many cases. So for Moonwalk, we're using the power of financial incentives for good by telling people to download the Moonwalk app. It's in the App Store and Google Play. So just like a normal phone app that you download. You go into the app, create a profile, connect a step tracker like Apple Health, Garmin, Google Fit. And when you arrive at the app, there are all these different games that you can choose from. Those games last a variety. Basically, there's 3 different variables in the games that you can choose from. How long they last, so the number of days in the game, the daily step goal. It could be as low as, say, 5,000 steps in a day, which is like 2.5 miles, or it could be 10,000, 12,000 steps in a day. And to join the game, whichever one you choose, there's an entry deposit. And essentially what we're asking players to do is put money on the line to hold themselves accountable to hitting that daily step goal in the game consistently. If you hit the step goal every day, as you should, you get all of your money back at the end of the game. If you miss the step goal one or several times, a portion of the deposit you put up at the beginning is taken from you and put into a prize pool. That prize pool is split amongst the winners, which are just the group of people in the game who hit the goal most consistently. So if it's a 5-day game, 10,000 steps per day is the goal that you see and sign up for. And to enter the game, it's 100 USDC per person. Say you and I are both in the game. I hit the goal 5 days out of 5. I get my 100 USDC back at the end, and I get to split part of the prize pool. You hit, say, 4 out of 5 days. Maybe you're traveling and miss a day. 1/5 of the deposit, so 20 USDC, is taken from you and goes to the prize pool. And 80 USDC is claimed back by you at the end of the game. So using loss aversion as a really powerful tool to hold you to doing what you say you're going to do, which people have a very hard time with. And then also dangling the opportunity for financial rewards beyond what you put up initially to, motivate people as well. So there's the financial incentive, and then there's also social incentive, which I think specific to fitness is really important. So rather than going it alone and setting an arbitrary step goal for yourself, you're joining these games with people from around the world who are also on the same path as you, trying to be more active, trying to be healthy. It's like a positive and light type of competition where I think you all motivate each other, and seeing other people's activities in the game, whether you're in a game with, your friends and your family, or you're in a public game with hundreds of people, you have those, others alongside you who are kind of pushing you forward, and you're doing the same for them.
Awesome. Yeah, I want to show I've got Garmin and a Whoop right here. So got my step trackers, and people who watch this channel know that I've been doing my ruck casts, I call them, where I walk with a weighted vest and record myself walking. Maybe I'll start doing Moonwalk while I do that.
We'll get you on.
Yeah, also, sorry, I'm going to pause for a second. I'll edit this out. My French bulldog just walks in here and it's snoring. So I'm going to move her real quick. Yeah, so one thing that I think is really interesting is there's been step to earn type apps in the past, but usually, as I recall, they didn't have that competition aspect, and they didn't have the aspect of usually having to put in money yourself. And so they very quickly turned into, okay, people, even if they don't care about fitness, they're going to find a way to walk just to some sort of inflationary reward, or they turn into people cheating. But it sounds like you're countering that because you got connected to external apps that are well reputed, like Garmin or Apple, and then people actually have to put in money themselves. Is that understanding correctly?
Yeah. So we structured this product very differently from what you saw with step to earn products in the past for that exact reason, because they were ultimately unsustainable. And really, stay off the soapbox with the long rant on this, but really what ended up being kind of their demise in terms of, these are products that are still around, but their usage fell off a cliff, because what happened is they effectively structured the entire premise of the product and its success on an in-app token that's specific to their platform, and that going up and to the right. So the token was essentially the product rather than the product itself, because using STEPN as an example, and we can go in on like the onboarding as well, of that being not really mainstream friendly. So there was a bit of a ceiling in terms of usage and potential for onboarding opportunities there as well. You join the app, but to join the app, you need an NFT. And that NFT determines whether you can earn tokens in the app by walking, by running, by both. it determines the ceiling of how much in tokens you're able to earn like in a day, from my understanding as well. Those NFTs can be traded on the secondary market. And it's just, the whole system was a little bit overcomplicated, more PvP of like users more feeling like they're competing against each other rather than alongside each other. And then just the inflationary tokenomics model as well. Like, it's great to have that model when the token is going up in price because people are making money and you're onboarding new users that way because they see that other people are making money. But that's not going to be sustainable when token price is not sustained or goes down. And it's also kind of hard to see if you actually got PMF with your product because, again, the token is the product, not the product itself. So the thing that I was happy about with Moonwalk, and I've told the team I wouldn't have joined if we led with like a Moonwalk specific token and that's what you earned in the app. What I like about the product is what you mentioned first, which is it's more community and group and inclusive, more supportive type structure in the game. But also any yield or rewards that you earn on top of your initial deposit are earned from other people in the game. That's a sustainable model, whether there are 5 people in the game or 5,000. It works exactly the same. And maybe the yields aren't as juicy of like rewards that you're earning as like a step-in product, but it's sustainable and built to last and actually driving people towards what we built the product for, which is forming healthy habits and using the financial incentives to do that. So trying not to, go like a little bit overboard in the explanation there, but we're also using tokens that are the most widely held and like liquid on Solana, which are USDC, Solana, and Bonk, because our co-founders are early Bonk contributors. But doing that, I think, also made it much more palatable and easy to understand for people who are coming to the product in different ways. And eventually, where we're going with it of building a truly mainstream consumer application is that we're going to have fiat on-ramp and off-ramp where people can use like dollars to join games. And you don't need crypto or a crypto wallet or NFTs or understanding of what any of those things are to use the product, which I think is really where a lot of consumer apps and especially the move to earn apps in the past have kind of fallen flat. But their models were ultimately unsustainable at the end of the day as well.
Got it. No, that's really interesting. And then, so everything you're saying makes total sense. Why Solana? And I guess broadly, like, why crypto for this?
Yeah. So, I mean, Solana, our team, our early contributors and our founders came from Solana ecosystem for a long time now. They were involved in Bonk. They were early investors. They were early builders in the space. But I do think more broadly, I was on a Twitter Spaces talking about this with other projects earlier today, actually, where you really are seeing every consumer team cross-chain coming to Solana. It's a really sleek, quick user experience. It's very, very low cost, which if you're building a consumer product and hoping to bring in a high volume of transactions and users, that only becomes more important. You can't do that with like gas fees, right? It's not sustainable. So from just a pure cost of transaction and settlement and speed perspective, Solana makes a ton of sense. And there's a reason that so many consumer teams are coming to Solana or building on it originally. And then crypto in general, I think in terms of using blockchain as like a coordination mechanism for one, pooling funds, distributing rewards, doing so efficiently and at low cost, and having the smart contract execution for that sort of alleviates any concerns that people may have with putting money on a platform, and making sure that, all of it comes back to really quick, seamless automation. I think blockchain does a really good job of that in a lot of different ways if you build the product the right way. So for Moonwalk, we have so many people around the world using the product, and the games are all based off of like different time zones, and it starts and ends based on your local time zone. The rewards are distributed after, making sure users don't have support tickets where maybe their steps were tracked wrong or they wanted to check on their data. But it's all done so efficiently. I don't think that we could scale to having, I think we have like 400 or 500 games running at any given time on our app right now, to coordinate the rewards distributions and funds gathering and just everything in between for all of those games, and making it be really seamless and easy for the end user where they never have to question where their funds are or what's happening. I think blockchain is a very good use case for that. And obviously, being able to see transparently, if you really want to get into the weeds of seeing that what we're telling users is being done is actually being done, because it's all executed via smart contract and on chain, is really valuable. But it's also just very efficient for us in a lot of ways. And we don't really want the user to have to see it on the front end. We just want to deliver a better experience and use Solana to do that.
Wow, makes total sense. So a couple of times you've mentioned consumer apps, consumer chains, that kind of thing. Where do you see the future of consumer apps going in crypto?
Yeah, I think we need to deliver people better daily experiences. And it really just comes down to that. You have a lot of people who use crypto around the world for more of the etho-driven stories that you and I both know well, of, you know, being unbanked or being in countries with political turmoil or unstable currencies. And people will jump through a lot of hoops to use products that make their lives easier when that is the case. But those, I would argue, are more extreme cases. So when it comes to consumer products, which are more designed to entertain or provide value in a way that is, I don't want to say unnecessary, but a little bit more recreational, the experience that users face to like interact with that product only becomes more important. So I think there's no ability for like a consumer crypto app to compromise on experience, because at the end of the day, consumers that aren't already in this industry have an abundance of choices for pretty much any product that they could think of. So how do we deliver an experience that is just as good as, if not ideally, exceptionally better in comparison to what's already out there? So for consumer apps, I think what we've seen in the past is not going far enough on making a seamless experience to get the user to touch and feel the product and actually experience the benefits, rather than trying to sell them on the like crypto ethos and decentralization and owning your data. That when it comes down to like having fun and being entertained, that shouldn't be the main sell. It should just be something that users already want to do or do within their day-to-day, where there's a large addressable market for it. And you're using all of the benefits of blockchain that, you know, we know and love, but to deliver just an ultimately better experience than what's already out there, something that's uniquely different and just makes people's lives easier or better in some way, whether that's making money, getting healthier, all kinds of different things. But I think we're finally seeing teams focusing on, what does onboarding look like? How do we remove the need for the users trying this app to have to own crypto, have a wallet, not, you know, giving them hoops to jump through that make it more complicated, because those bottlenecks ultimately lead to drop off in adoption. So the future of consumer and for crypto builders and the ones who are thinking about it the right way is removing the unnecessary crypto elements from the front end and just letting the blockchain on the back end be the engine and infrastructure that powers it, without adding potential complications to the actual experience for the end user. Sorry, that was a little long.
That was a good answer. I would say I agree with pretty much everything you said there. One thing I think about a lot with that, though, is if that does happen, and I think that's the way things are going, does that mean that like crypto or Web3 as a independent cultural space online, does it mean that kind of becomes less important if people don't even know that technology is in the back end?
At the end of the day, and maybe this is a contrarian take for people who have been in the space for a long time, blockchain is an infrastructure choice. You're choosing an infrastructure provider based on what that infrastructure can do for the product that you're building. And I think that you need the more maximalist people who are passionate about the ethos of it and what we're trying to do and building a better system to propel the space forward in early days. But I think that there's kind of a separation between the early days of like starting a movement and what that actually turns into at the end, when you look at what people actually want to use and will use. So like, I kind of think about it that way. I think there's a bit of a split between what needs to be thought through and how you approach it, from like bringing the financial system on chain or something, for example, right? Like there are inherently benefits to explaining to those who you need to actually convince of like why it's better. But I think for like day-to-day consumer experiences, it's just an infrastructure choice. Like if it was easier and a better experience for us to build Moonwalk on something else, we would have done it that way, because we just want to deliver the best product possible. And if we're using Solana to do that, then that's amazing. And that's going to inherently bring value back to Solana in the ecosystem by building a product that thrives and like showcases its potential, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense. So to wrap things up, if people want to check out Moonwalk, they're sold. Where should they go?
Yeah, download the Moonwalk Fitness app in the App Store or Google Play, so anyone can. My mom uses it, for example, so easy to find, easy to onboard to, and create your profile, connect to Step Tracker, and you can just join a game from there. If you don't have crypto, you can go join games for free to try it out. We're working on adding fiat on ramp and off ramp, where you can like bet your dollars on Moonwalk games as well, which is kind of where we're going with end product, but. Definitely try it out, get moving. It's a really good tool, whether you're someone who's just starting your fitness journey or someone who wants to make a little bit of money off of something they're already doing for people who are active. And it's just a really nice nudge to have in the back of your head. We're all very busy. So having an extra reminder to get up and move is definitely needed sometimes when we're rotting at our desks.
Cool. And where can they follow Moonwalk and where can they follow you?
Yeah, both on Twitter. So Moonwalk's handle is at Moonwalk Fitness, and then mine is at Dead Kate Bounce, Kate CAIT. I'm not morbid. It's just a play on a finance term for the people who don't know that, because I get that a lot.
Yeah, Dead Cat Bounce, right, for anyone listening. Awesome. Well, no, this has been a great conversation. Hope some people check out Moonwalk, maybe integrating it into my Ruckcasts in the future. And for people watching, be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll have links to Kate and Moonwalk Fitness's profiles down below.